So everybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge nerd, right? For the most part, you guys have figured that out. All right, so my nerdy passion is sci-fi, specifically Star Wars, right? You've all heard me gush about it the entire semester. Part of the reason that I love sci-fi is that it embodies so much more than just a simple story. In every genre of film, you can sit down and you can analyze it, and you can find deeper details, you can find some overarching story, some sort of narrative that embodies things we're actually experiencing in everyday life. One thing that I've noticed about Star Wars, and I did not want it to be true, it's incredibly racist. And I had no idea until I got on the internet, and the internet completely destroyed my favorite film saga. So, today we're going to talk about racism. Far away. Yes. So why Star Wars specifically? Well, for one, Star Wars is literally one of the biggest sci-fi movie names in history. Does anybody have any clue what it took in opening weekend when episode 7 came out? The most recent one. Or
3 billion.
any other guesses?
1
A little
billion.
closer to reality.
1 billion. I don't know if that's close.
3 million.
25 million?
300 million?
All right, you're closest.
Average statistic.
Hey.
Really? Come on. All right. So you can kind of see it for some.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. Yeah, so The Force Awakens in particular, this most recent one that came out, just about broke $248 million. And that's in a 3-day period of opening weekend. If you look at the numbers going up from the original release in 1977, it's gone up incrementally from about $5 million to $248 million. It went from just a tentative step out into directing for George Lucas after THX 1138 to being something worldwide, so big that even Disney got jealous and decided to buy it, and is now sinking so much money into it that they can produce a movie every single year, which is unheard of. The original 3 movies that came out, the original trilogy, took at least 3 years apiece to complete. So that gives you an idea of how much Disney is interested in making money off of this. So with something this big, you have to imagine that it's touching a lot of people on a daily basis. It's something present in their homes, especially mine. I'm even wearing a Darth Vader t-shirt right now. I did not realize that until I got to class today. So yeah, hopefully this one works. So traditionally in sci-fi, there are 4 ways that authors or writers or directors will deal with race. The first being metaphor. So with metaphor, that's allowing fictional groups to represent real marginalized groups. Some examples of this are Avatar, which I personally never saw. Starship Troopers, which I love. It's supposed to be about a bunch of white folks being heroic soldiers and traveling to the far reaches of the galaxy to fend off giant bugs that are threatening humanity. But in the end, they become so completely genocidal and just overly violent towards the bugs that you actually start to feel bad for who they're killing, as opposed to who are supposed to be the heroes of the film. And of course, X-Men. If you look at the cast of X-Men, who's seen it? What do they all have in common?
They're all mutants.
Okay. Let's rephrase that. What do all the actors say the X-Men have in common?
Generally they're attractive.
Okay.
It's supposed to be about marginalized groups.
It's hard being a pretty person.
It's true.
All right, so keeping in mind we're talking about racism.
Are they all white?
Yes.
Oh,
Good going.
Except how,
Except for Halle Berry.
yeah.
One.
Okay.
Out of a team of how many?
Yeah.
And in how
I
many
mean,
movies?
yeah, I guess she's blue, but she's really a white
blue?
person. Yeah, okay.
Well, who plays Storm? That's not Halle Berry. No, that is Halle Berry.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
She's talking about the other.
Mystique.
Mystique.
Yeah.
But she's a white person, and
Yeah.
she's human.
So traditionally in these, the cast tends to be largely white, or at least near white. And any kind of difference or marginalized groups are portrayed by some other being, usually aliens or technology in some way. The other is tokenism, where there may be one or two minority characters, but they're placed in a supporting role. They can be sort of involved in the story, but they never really have their own storyline. Specific examples from Star Wars: Lando Calrissian, who's problematic himself.
Which one's Lando?
Have you seen The Empire Strikes Back?
Which number is that?
5.
Yes.
5. The very handsome one in the cape.
he's like Han Solo's friend.
Yes.
Okay,
You
okay.
truly belong with us here in clouds.
Yes. And of course, Mace Windu,
Mhm.
played by Samuel L. Jackson, the baddest motherfucker in the galaxy. And of course, diversity, actually using their creative powers to create a diverse environment to tell their story. You'll notice one thing about this. Exactly.
Yeah.
There are no examples in science fiction where they explicitly deal with race by creating a diverse cast. There are a couple science fiction novels that were referenced when I was doing research, but almost all of the films are very, very steady in their portrayal of whiteness. It was actually really sad. And of course, the slightly more common is the direct reference, actually talking about race. For example, The Hunger Games, District 9, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Those are a little more obvious in their discussion of it, but not by much. So Star Wars specifically uses a combination of metaphor and tokenism. Within Star Wars, we notice that the races are usually portrayed by aliens and technology, which I'll show you one quick clip in a second. So for something that everybody is so positive about and children flock to and people spend $248 million in 3 days on, it actually pisses a lot of people off. This lady being one of them. Josh,
She came to the school.
She did. She was here last year, I think.
Yeah, like, I have feelings, good, bad, and otherwise, about Star Wars, and I have a lot. Spent the whole day talking about the whole Darth Vader situation, but oh,
You could?
yeah, like the part where he was totally a black guy whose name basically was James Earl Jones,
Right.
and we were all, but while he was black, he was terrible and bad and awful, and used to cut off white men's hands and didn't, actually claim his son. But as soon as he claims his son and goes over to the good, he takes off his mask and he is white. Oh yes, I have many, many feelings about that, but I will try to put them over here. Why do
Good
people?
luck with that.
Yeah, why do people love Star Wars so much?
Conversation anyway.
Alright, so clearly she's very, very
MSNBC.
Level 5.
She has a lot of faults in her argument, which we will, So this is Darth Vader. Does anybody know who Darth Vader is? Somebody explain this to me.
Who the character is?
Yes. Josh got a great look on his face, so Josh gets this one.
He is the chosen one of the Force long prophecy ago. It's going to bring balance to the Force, though he turns to the dark side to save his wife, who he ends up killing because he went to the dark side, and ultimately returns to the light because his son redeems him in weird ways. And actually does bring balance to the Force by killing the Emperor. Ta-da.
Very in-depth explanation. I was basically looking for he's Luke Skywalker's father and the main antagonist of the film. But we got the full lesson, so now you're all well.
And now I know he had a wife. I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
They
No.
were married in
That's
secret.
like 3
yes.
movies.
Huh, okay, yeah, well, I
Alright.
haven't seen many of them, so there you go.
So originally, Darth Vader was played by David Prowse. He's a world-renowned bodybuilder. They saw him, they thought, this guy would be perfect because he's huge. And they built the suit completely to fit him. There were some problems in post-production when they started watching the film. They realized that David Prowse sounds like a whiny little kid with a British accent and is not terribly intimidating. So then they brought in James Earl Jones, who you just heard Melissa Berry talk about, and claimed that he was the actor playing him. In other scenes, Bob Anderson also did some stunt work for David Prowse. And then towards the end, where he was redeemed and suddenly became a white man again, he was played by Sebastian Shaw. And of course, everybody's favorite whiny Darth Vader, Hayden Christensen, played the young Darth Vader. He is easily one of the most hated actors that I've ever
More than Jar Jar Binks?
Huh? Oh, I'm getting to Jar Jar.
Jar.
Yeah. So, really quick, just so you see what I'm talking about with
David Prowse.
Start tearing this ship apart. Please my feet until you handle those tapes. Find the passengers in this vessel. I want them alive.
I can still hear David Prowse's accent in the Darth Vader mask muffled because he would.
a villain. Is that what you want him to sound like?
No.
So naturally, you're going to go with somebody who sounds deeper or threatening. At least that's my idea. But to this day, people still want to argue about Darth Vader and whether that was an intentional misrepresentation of the character by switching races, by using a black man's voice and having a white man in the suit, where his race is not implicitly discussed until his helmet's taken off and his face is revealed. I think more so it depends on if you watch the films, how well you pay attention to it. If you pay attention to the storyline, it's brought up a couple times that he is whose father?
Whose father?
Okay, and what is Luke?
White.
Very white, very, very white, very Anglo-Saxon features. So traditionally, everybody in Star Wars in their main story is white. This is one of the few examples that you get of minority in Star Wars, at least in the original trilogy. This is Lando Calrissian, who we were talking about earlier. Very well dressed, very dapper. You'll notice back here there's some minority figures in positions of subservience. They answer to him, and his right-hand man is even a white man who is part cyborg. So the problematic thing with Lando Calrissian is he had the same job as Han Solo, one of our white main characters. Han Solo was a criminal, a career criminal for most of his younger life until he got involved in the main story. He and Lando did the exact same thing. They got in trouble together all of the time. And yet somehow throughout the trilogy, Lando is never redeemed. When you first meet him in The Empire Strikes Back, he is presented exactly as a scoundrel, a criminal, somebody that Han used to pal around with back during his not-so-legal days. And continuously he's portrayed as sort of the predatory figure. His main involvement in the story in this episode is exactly that. He betrays his friends by turning them over to Darth Vader. You brought up Jar Jar. One of the things about Star Wars, like I said, is that if it's not portrayed through droids or technology, race or sort of diversity, if you will, is portrayed by using aliens. This is Jar Jar, for those of you who don't know. When Episode 1 came out, The Phantom Menace in 1997, There was a huge uproar in the media and basically everywhere because of the way Jar Jar spoke. He is very commonly referred to as more of a Sambo figure or a minstrel figure, just because of the way he carried himself, the way he spoke, and the way that the other characters doted on him and treated him. And he was just completely disrespected throughout the film. He was there for more comic relief than anything. He's one of many, many examples where George Lucas made some questionable choices on character creation. The Nine Woodians. Josh, who are the Nine Woodians?
Those people, they control the Trade Federation.
Yes, so the Trade Federation was an outlying, sort of conflicting group that the main characters were combating throughout most of the early first two films or so, and then they kind of got their butts handed to them and they disappeared from the storyline. People all over the world have compared the Nine Woodians to various Asian stereotypes. They're very quiet, they're very meek, very subservient, and even the way that they speak, even though they were portrayed by white actors, folks swear that they have Asian accents. And I could not get away from that once I read that, and then I went back and watched it, and it just kind of ruined it for me. The other, and this is one of my favorites, is the Toydarians. Notice his little hat and the sideburns and the beard. Does that stick out to anybody? See Sam. What you think of him?
He's obviously Jewish.
Yes. Okay.
Painful.
Alright, so yes, a painfully obvious embodiment of a Jewish stereotype. Throughout the first film, Watto's entire concern is money. He is a slave owner, he is a junk dealer and trader, and his big thing is money. One of the main characters offers him a huge sum of money, like $20,000 in their world, and he basically says, oh, your money's no good here because, it's not from this planet. I need real hard money that I can deal with. And throughout the scene, literally makes physical penny pinching gestures. Another thing I couldn't unsee once I saw it. So, throughout his filmmaking history, George Lucas has made a slew of bad choices in his casting, in his character creation, and the way he portrays these individuals. When Disney sold this franchise, I was really hoping they would move on to bigger and better things. And in a sense, they have. How many people have seen the new Star Wars, The Force Awakens? Okay, good. So the majority of you will know what I'm talking about. What's one thing, if you've seen the old films, what's one thing that stands out with this new film as far as their casting?
And character black.
Yes. So, pardon?
Female.
And female, yes. They went with a female lead and a minority as one of their main characters. That was the day the internet went crazy. Was when this still, as a promotional still, was released from J.J. Abrams. This is John Boyega. He is a British actor of Nigerian descent. Once they released this, the internet blew up. People were pissed. There's a whole slew of nerdy justification for why they might be upset, but if they actually knew as much as they said they did, it would be completely, it would shoot the argument in the foot, basically. Originally in the first, say, episode 1 through 3, all the soldiers were clones. They were literally called clone troopers. And they were cloned off of a Pacific Islander, so they all looked exactly the same. Through the original trilogy, episodes 4, 5, and 6, that army was completely destroyed and turned into one that basically thrived off enlisted individuals of all races, sizes, from different planets, all kinds of stuff, but all human in some way, shape, or form, or nearly human. So when people started saying, why is there a black stormtrooper? It brought out a lot of hate. What made it even worse was the inclusion of a white female lead alongside the black male lead. That proved problematic for a number of reasons, because throughout the story, if you've seen it, everybody goes into it thinking that Finn, John Boyega's character, and Daisy Ridley's character, Ray, are going to end up in some sort of romantic relationship. I don't want to discuss it too much. Oh no, it's there. It's there.
I have a lot of feelings about that.
I don't want to discuss it too much because I saw some folks did raise their hand as to whether they've seen it or not. So.
It's okay, you can reveal all, I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll
you
bring
guys
next
okay with
class.
me?
I've
Is it
never
gonna be a
seen
spoiler? Do
any
you have
of
any
the
interest in
I've
it?
never seen it. Yeah,
Spoiler alert.
I think there is a romantic interest between them. Yes, I agree with you.
Okay, alright,
I think they're gonna try it with Poe.
With Poe? I think so too.
He's definitely gonna be with Poe. Like, there's no question. I don't know.
alright, that's a discussion for another day. So, throughout the film, Finn, as soon as he sees Daisy, is immediately enamored with her. He sees her from across the market and is immediately like, damn. Immediately runs over, starts engaging with her, and then they actually kind of attack him, but that's another plot point. Calling him a thief. So immediately he's portrayed as a thief. He is portrayed as a traitor for leaving the group that he was trained and supposed to be serving. Abandons his post and disappears to a desert planet. There's a number of problems with that whole storyline. But John Boyega and Daisy Ridley handled it amazingly. We were talking about social media earlier. Twitter went nuts with this. People took it and ran. Because as a sci-fi genre, or as a sci-fi, basically, at this point I'd say it's one of the biggest sci-fi movie sagas ever. People take it very, very personally. And something that's been around 30 years, and that people have been raised on for multiple generations, yeah, people were not happy about this.
What's PC?
Political correct. So calling for a boycott because of a black actor being cast as a leading role. In addition, there are other sites and other articles about the fact that there are female leads.
Reading. Oh my gosh.
That's
hate that word.
sick.
Yeah.
This is who you can advertise your company?
I think that is the way to go, and I would like Negromancer and Pudwiener or Pudwiener on my side.
Something about me was more to say that.
At Team Load, is that what that is?
It has to be
Yes.
that name.
Fantastic.
Alright, so you saw how everybody reacted to this. One of the big things about Star Wars is the historical parallels that take place in it. The stormtroopers that John Boyega was a part of, what historical body would those be referencing? Nazi, what are they called?
Troopers.
Stormtroopers.
Yes.
Literally called stormtroopers. Embracing their whiteness. Solid white, pure, clean armor. To me, I want to see if anybody catches this sort of historical reference here.
Today is the end of the Republic. The end of a regime that acquiesces to disorder. At this very moment, in a system far from here, the
Are you on the No, I was on.
By the way, don't forget that you're still making comments on the teaching and handing it to the person. It's hard to remember when you don't have something in front of you that requires you to do it.
Yeah, it's been cool. God, technology. Yeah, it's been every day with Netflix.
New Republic lies to the galaxy.
Can you all smile for the camera, all three of you? Nice, thank you.
Yeah, I might actually know how to do the other thing in my class.
I'm gonna try to see if it works.
Oh, it's not how I should play it because it's, yeah, I don't know why. It's because it's copyrighted.
Okay.
So we can't play it?
Probably not. Yeah. You can try, hit play, but probably gonna say no.
So we have to do the double display?
Yeah, so I'll have to do Black Mirror, because that's how Netflix does me every time I do mirroring, because of copyrighting.
It's okay, it's not completely relevant.
I mean, it's up to you.
Alright, so while she's making this work,
This vast machine which you have built.
You can keep talking, just
Okay.
ignore me.
alright, so while she's trying to figure out if this is going to completely screw over my point here, yeah, this is my iTunes release, by the way. So, if everybody could take out a sheet of paper, I have a couple questions I want to ask. And I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts.
You could just do it right there.
Hey.
Look at Chelsea.
All right.
go.
So this is not going to be.
Alright, so let me take that up. Sorry. Just a moment.
It's not going to play because it's on dock cam for the sound.
Play this down.
No, you're good. You got it on dock cam. I plug it from the laptop.
Help me, Josh. Sorry. Let's listen and then
Will
watch.
this be on?
The end of a regime that acquiesces to disorder. At this very moment, in a system far from here, the new republic lies to the galaxy, while secretly supporting the treachery of the rules of resistance. This vast machine which you have built, upon which we stand, will bring an end to the Senate, to their cherished fleet. All remaining systems will bow to the First Order, and will remember this as the last day of the Republic.
Alright, so did anybody catch that reference right there?
No. Where's that from?
Oh, I'm done. I don't need this.
You don't need your PowerPoint at all?
No.
Okay.
Alright, so, like I was asking.
You can just go ahead and shut the whole thing down, say end
Yeah.
class.
Show video on.
Your call is being connected.
Excellent. They're very responsive. You have to answer.
Hello?
Yeah, sorry. Alright, so, in that speech right there, did anybody feel it was a little bit triumph of the will, perhaps? So, yes and no. So in all of his films, and granted this was J.J. Abrams who took that and ran with the free licensure of Disney. They erased all preceding storylines and gave him full capability to do whatever he wanted. But for those of you who have seen the original trilogy, episodes 4 through 6, do you think J.J. Abrams was that far off from George Lucas's original vision? As far as his representations of power, of race? Okay.
I mean, it seems really similar to me. That it, as far as, I mean, even like the people who are like the evil, powerful ones in the movie, they're still, these white people who just want all this power. I mean, I don't know. And they just have all of these people that are there to do their bidding and to do what they need people to do for them. I don't know.
Something I've also noticed is that they have the same like weird from wherever European accents. Like, why does this person living in space have a semi-British accent? I do not know.
And that's one thing that's pretty prevalent throughout the early films as well. All of the imperial officers and the aristocrats all have British accents in some form or another.
I'm surprised they weren't German accents. I always have wondered that.
Would that have made it too obvious?
I mean, I feel like they're being obvious enough here, so let's just make it super obvious. Like, I guess we shouldn't bring up old things though and offend everyone.
Well, based on the 4 ways of dealing with race, do you think that that scene I just showed you, would you consider that a direct commentary on racism? Or would that be more of a metaphorical exploration of
For me, just because I love film and I'm into film criticism, I think, yeah, it is a pretty direct message. But I don't think that they expect people that just, 7-year-old at the movies to pick up on that. They're just gonna see a bunch of evil people and the good people. But as someone with, I mean, being our age, how could you not pick up on that?
Well, and that's the thing. So looking at your demographic for these kind of films, it can literally range from a 7-year-old to 70.
I mean, it's rated
Doesn't
PG-13, right?
Yeah.
So technically, their audience was older than 13. Well, 13 or older.
Well, most of those kids probably had their parents bring them.
Yeah.
This is the first time that a Star Wars movie has ever had that rating. Everything else before has been PG. And I think maybe it's just because of the violence of this film in comparison to the rest, which I don't think is that much worse. So looking at it and saying that you as a film, somebody who enjoys film analysis, but saying that, a child may not if they're just going to the movies, do you think with that in mind that film directors have a responsibility to portray race and gender and certain issues like that in a different light, or is it something that they should have creative freedom of?
That's such a hard question. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I think if you're out putting out art in a massive way like that, especially with a medium like film, you do have a responsibility just because so many people are gonna see it. It's like, how could, I feel like it's innate with being a massive film franchise. There's certain boundaries you can't cross. Just like, it's PG-13 for certain reasons, and they had to make a decision, okay, do we want this to be PG-13 or do we want to keep it lighter? And all those decisions lead up to the main film. So it's definitely on their minds, being responsible.
So if anybody has a sheet of paper out, asked a few minutes ago. I'm curious what your thoughts are. I heard Rebecca's, but your thoughts on the same question. Do film directors have any sort of responsibility or obligation to the general public, those who are consuming their products, who are being targeted by their marketing and the constant sales at Toys R Us and Target and everywhere else? They're being bombarded with this film franchise and all the merchandising and everything else to place certain characters in the forefront, to diversify their casting, be it through including various races.
Sometimes I wonder if these questions are as applicable to foreign films. I mean, myself, I don't watch that many foreign films, but whenever I do, I feel like we don't run into these types of issues.
Yeah. Well, and I think in that case it would probably depend on the country of origin,
Yeah.
what their population looks like. I mean, if they're a more diverse population, so they think it's more of a melting pot culture, are they going to include that in their portrayal? Or is it something uniquely American that we like white people in our movies and tend to keep it that way?
Well, because there's like Bollywood.
Yeah.
I mean, they only use Indian people, I think.
Do you know when they were, I don't know if you've done this research or not, but when they were doing their casting call for the different characters, were they calling for African Americans, or what were they searching for?
No, they were not specifically targeting any race or anyone in particular for Finn's character. They simply put out just the typical casting call saying that they wanted somebody to portray this character between a certain age. This is his backstory. And I mean, that was it. But I guess John Boyega came in and completely nailed it, and they decided to run with him.
Yeah, I mean, in situations, if I can voice it instead of write it, I can write it too if you want me to. But when I think of movies and film, especially in this type of situation where it's supposed to be like the whole galaxy, like all of these different races, aliens, different things can be involved. I like that they didn't say it has to be a white person in the call, which I think is doing what they should be doing. Or if they would have said it needed to be a white person, I would have had more of a problem with that, 'cause it's not representing this whole galaxy of races and identities. What frustrates me is when they will exclude certain people and not judge it based off of their acting and their abilities, which is something that should be really important for movies like this. Which makes me wonder how they got Hayden Christensen in the first three movies.
Shots fired.
But, I mean, like, he just ruined those movies completely. And
I can either agree or disagree with it.
but you would like to, wouldn't you? Where it should, in a movie, it should be based off of skill and talent and ability if there isn't a specific need for a specific race.
Like if you're doing a historical movie and you have to actually have a particular race
Yeah.
or different characters.
Well, so in Finn's case, is,
Yeah.
played by John Boyega. Boyega handled it beautifully when those tweets started coming out. He put out a YouTube video and he basically said, "Hey, guess what? I'm a stormtrooper and you're not. So get over it. You're gonna have to deal with it."
Yeah.
Slightly nicer in his conveyance of the message, but literally he went on, multiple national news outlets, international outlets, online, print, video, every medium you could think of, and said the exact same thing. He said, "You know what? This is 2015. You're gonna have to get over it. There's going to be a black male lead." People are still arguing, however, that it was not enough of a step towards diversifying Star Wars, because he was sort of relegated to the side in comparison to Rey, Daisy Ridley's character.
But the feminists probably like that, though.
Yes and no.
Really?
there's been some that were extremely pleased with that, and then others that felt that it was too much of a move towards feminism. Or, you know, this very intentional, like, hey, we're gonna have a girl as the main character just because we can. It's our duty to do so.
People just can't be happy, can they?
I feel like there should, I mean, I don't feel like there should be, I don't think there's an obligation for them to diversify, but I feel like they definitely should. I feel like, you know, it's media and cultures and society's job to keep people accountable. I mean, you know, it's worrying when some of these movies that are not diverse at all are making a lot of money, but I feel like keeping the spotlight on them and having this conversation is what's really important.
I think it's also important that the directors understand the choices that they're making. So they're not gonna diversify, that they understand. Exactly, right? They have understanding of why I'm doing it this way, and why I'm shooting this way. Again, it needs to be a better reason than, oh, because I'm not really racist. It needs to have the plausible explanation.
Did George Lucas mean to do all of those different stereotypes?
He swears that he didn't. There have been a million interviews. I have spent hours reading these. This entire thing started, and this is what my syllabus is literally a semester of looking at all the films, looking at race, gender, sexuality, you know, the political sort of parallels of all of this, because I was given a book that had essays about different things. Lucas swears that he didn't. He says, you know, I had no idea. I was just making a movie, and these are aliens to me. But it's also, for me, I'm curious if doing something like that and having that sort of creative power at your fingertips, if you're not, whether you intend, you know, it's intentional or not, if you're not going to draw from your own life experiences or your own worldview to create this imaginary world. You know, when these films came out in 1977, 1980, and 1983 respectively, you know, that was probably what George Lucas was used to, living in, you know, a somewhat more affluent area of California. Yes.
Couldn't tell if you were calling on me or not. So I've written a screenplay about the home for aged white supremacists. And I'm just wondering if you think that I, when I'm casting this film, have to pay attention to race and stereotypes. It is, by the way, a home for aged white male supremacists in particular. Should I put in a couple of characters of color and have some nurses who are women?
Depends on the roles you're going to have them play. I can see that.
Do you? I'm just asking. Do you think I have a responsibility to do that?
I don't think you have a responsibility if your declared intent is to market it towards a specific demographic. But if you're trying to make something that's going to be universally appealing, I think you kind of, at least personally, I think you should make it universal in its portrayal of the world that you created. I think using only technology, like the droids, or only certain aliens to portray diversity is very limiting. I mean, creatively, it can be incredibly limiting.
Do you think it will be a big seller, this film that I'm making?
I'm not going to shoot down your hopes and dreams. I say go for it and reach for the
Okay.
white stars.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
So does racial characterization negate story?
I think if it's done well, I don't think it would. I think if you're a very skilled director, I think you could do it and intentionally involve a more diverse cast and have it tied into the story and not affect the story. The third example, using actual diversity in the film, is referring to somebody creating this whole world with characters that are all different skin colors, you know, types from different planets. You know, if they're near human, maybe one's got blue skin, one's got purple, and one's brown, and one's white. But yet they're all working together. They're all viewed as equal in the viewer's eyes. was I think a lot of the issues with George Lucas throughout the first 6 films is that, and even with J.J. Abrams now, is that these characters who were supposed to be the token black guy or, you know, there to diversify the cast were very often relegated to the sidelines. And people are still saying that about John Boyega. They're still saying that he ended up becoming second string to Daisy Ridley's character, that he was just chasing after a white woman the entire film, that he, you know, like I said before, he abandoned his post, he had no loyalties, and he was rescued by a white savior in the form of Poe Dameron.
Goodness.
Dameron's not white. He's a Latino Jew.
Yeah, he is, but he's sort of
He's light skinned.
he's sort of whitewashed in the film.
You have 4 minutes.
Thinking, I mean, is Star Trek as bad with their diversity?
Yes. Yes.
Did they get as much backlash as Star Wars does?
Somewhat, yes.
I mean, I know with the new ones, Ahura or whatever her name, what is her name? She's black in
Yeah.
it. Is that her name? Ahura? But I don't know what the diversity like is in that other than those 2 little movies.
It's pretty much the same thing. It came out around the same time. You know, Star Trek did come out a little bit earlier. It's a crew led by a white guy, and almost every single.
Whenever they go on an adventure, it's like the only thing who's gonna not come back because it's the one minority.
It's the one minority, and they're always a red shirt.
Have you guys ever seen Galaxy Quest?
Yes.
I love that.
They're not making 2 because Alan.
They were going to?
No.
They were gonna make a second one?
Alan died, so they
Oh,
can't.
that's so crazy.
So, why do you enjoy Galaxy Quest so much?
It just mocks like the different stereotypes and just the ideas of these films and
Spaceballs.
Spaceballs!
Comb
So
the
do you-
sand.
I mean, do you think race can be more easily discussed in a setting like that, like Galaxy Quest or Spaceballs, where it's completely satire, and you know going into it that's what it is?
Yeah. If we're looking for discussion, for sure. Because it's funny too. It's, I don't know, it mocks all of this.
So would
Appreciate
you,
that.
I mean, as viewers, would you guys feel more comfortable watching a film where it's dealt with in its sort of campy, nonchalant manner, talking about race and gender?
I wasn't saying peace, I was saying 2 minutes.
Because it's like, if not, then what am I gonna do again? It's like I'm watching new Star Wars with my black friend, and I'm like, oh, good job, you see that main character? Like, like, what am I supposed to do in that situation?
Yeah.
Do you see that?
And when I think about Darth Vader, for example, and how he went through these different stages, I'm like, people would have been more satisfied if he would have been an actual black guy at that last scene, like, as him being the symbol of evil, would that make people more satisfied?
Well, I think that's the thing about Abrams is he's actually changing that because we actually get to see Kylo Ren's face and Adam Driver. Like, as terrible and painful as that is for us to watch, like, we actually get it. He is idiotic.
You think he is?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, is it?
I love him.
Okay,
I don't like
so-
him either.
Oh, no. So really quick, casting.
Wait, was that
Guys.
idiotically hot?
What?
That was idiotically hot, is what you were saying?
No, he was
Okay.
awful.
Oh,
I cannot
idiotically
stand him.
awful.
People
All right.
either hate him or think he's really.
Alright, so.
We're supposed to listen to him
casting
now, I
black
think.
men in the first few films, do you think that would have changed people's reaction to it? Do you think that would have satisfied people like Melissa Perry?
No, because then they would have been complaining about him still being an evil person, even though he did get redeemed, but then there wouldn't be enough black people and there wouldn't be enough diversity. Like, when is the line sufficient for everyone to be happy? Is there one, or will people just always have something to complain about?
Yeah. It's like, are you trying to enjoy the film at all? Or are you
People
just
on the
here
other
to-
side are also complaining now. It's
Well,
like, when we have
true.
more diversity, people are like, oh, well, everybody hates white people now.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's gonna be mad no matter what.
The internet will never be happy.
Internet trolls.
That's the entire point of this. The internet will never be happy.
Perfect.
Trolls.
That's good.
Perfect,
If
50
you guys
minutes.
did answer that, I would love to read what your thoughts are if you didn't speak, because I felt like I had to switch to speak.
Great, thank you, and happy birthday again.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going home to write a paper for Kent.
Yay, what a great birthday.